Hello everyone, Dr. Suneel Dhand, internal medicine physician. I am willing to take my natural COVID antibody case all the way to the US Supreme Court. I regret that things have reached this far. I was hoping that common sense may have prevailed. Many of you who watch my videos know my own story, which I've talked about in detail, all the unique events that have happened in my personal history since the beginning of last year, everything that brings me to this point, and my unique concerns. But to summarize, basically, I contracted COVID-19 back in February 2020, and thankfully it was a mild case. And since then, I've regularly been checking my immunity on lab tests, on a variety of different tests, and I am consistently positive for a good level of immunity. Because of that, I've taken the decision to not yet get the COVID-19 vaccine. And the situation I find myself in now is that come September 2021, I am in a position where I may well have to stop working in a couple of places that I do. I am banned from going into restaurants in one of my favorite cities, Manhattan. And very soon I may have other restrictions placed on me, including travel, all because I am deemed too dangerous, despite having natural immunity. Now, firstly, before we even get started, I would like to say that we wouldn't even be having this discussion, or I wouldn't be having this discussion, had I not already had COVID-19, recovered from it. I don't advocate that anyone tries to get COVID-19 to get immunity. And certainly, had I not got COVID-19, I would have taken a COVID-19 vaccine, given the fact that I also work in healthcare. Nevertheless, there are a lot of people in my situation who have had COVID-19 through no fault of their own and now face this dilemma regarding getting vaccinated. And a word here about all those 22-year-old keyboard warriors out there who think that every time someone raises a question, it makes them in another tribe. They're anti-vax. I am somebody who, since the beginning of this pandemic, has been taking care of COVID-19 patients. I've now worked in 4 different COVID units. And over the last several months, I've been telling a lot of people, both in my videos and real life, that they would benefit from a COVID-19 vaccine. In fact, just the other day, I was telling someone that they may well benefit from a booster shot before the onset of winter because they were in a high-risk group. I also, in my regular job, if nurses are not available, this is going back pre-COVID, to give a vaccine, I will frequently administer vaccines myself. And over the years, I have received all of the routine recommended vaccinations myself. This is not an anti-vax issue. This is an issue regarding a clinical concern and what is clinically indicated. And again, to these keyboard warriors out there then, I will say this: the practice of medicine is immensely complex. It is not a social media post. It is not a hashtag. It is not a bumper sticker. It is immensely complicated, and I want to touch on 2 basic tenets of the practice of medicine. Number 1 is there are a lot of nuances involved. Medicine is rarely a black and white arena. There is a lot of gray that needs to be acknowledged. You cannot be absolutist in the field of medicine. And number 2 is any medical decision out there, whether it's a vaccine or any therapeutic, simply comes down to a benefit versus risk decision. If the benefits outweigh the risks, you go ahead. If the risks outweigh the benefits, you don't go ahead. And if there's any doubt about that, you typically don't go ahead either. Repeated petitions that I have been making have been completely ignored by the authorities to recognize natural immunity. And that is despite the fact that there is a lot of evidence out there that natural immunity kind of is a thing. It does exist, and it is not to be ignored. Whether it's through intellectual laziness or other things that might be at play, you cannot ignore natural immunity, and that is backed up by studies. In fact, there are studies out there that indicate that it may even be better than vaccinated immunity, and that's not to suggest that you want to get infected, but facts are facts, and science and biology is science and biology. People who are in a similar situation to myself should have the option, if they weigh up the risks and benefits and they have proven immunity on lab tests, for not receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. And of course, I am not dispensing medical advice here. Every decision out there is between a doctor and a patient, and I would encourage everyone, even in my position, to have that discussion. My point is regarding ignoring completely natural immunity and not even allowing for the possibility of people with natural immunity to say check their immunity, their antibody levels every couple of months, every 3 months, and use that as a certificate, or even have COVID tests if authorities are that worried, COVID tests to prove that they don't have current COVID. But to completely not allow natural immunity and insist on these people having vaccines is not quite following the science. I would have hoped by now that medical authorities would have at least been reasonable on this issue, but they are being very unreasonable. I mean, think about this. In a restaurant, say, in New York City right now, where only vaccinated people are allowed in, you could do blood tests on everyone in there, and it has been shown that not necessarily everyone who is vaccinated has an immune response. The immune response is highly individual to everybody, and the immune response may not necessarily be detectable. So you're telling me that in that restaurant, you go in and test the blood of everybody there, and they may not even have a positive immune response, but you won't let the person in who actually has a documented immune response. How does that follow any logic or science at all? Talk about living in a tick box world where we are not following science, where we're more about tick box and mandates rather than actual immunity, which is what this topic is all about. In fact, right now, if I wanted to, and I've actually signed up for this, I could actually go and donate my blood to help people who are suffering from COVID. But yet I cannot walk into a restaurant and I may be banned from working in my workplace. I mean, this is utterly ridiculous. Let's think here. If you deny natural immunity, you are also denying vaccinated immunity. There's a lot of confusion about this issue. But vaccines don't magically give you antibodies. How do vaccines work? They make your body produce an immune response so that you develop those antibodies, those B and T cells. So if vaccines do that, how could actually having the infection and recovering not give you a degree of protection? How long that protection lasts, how effective it is, of course, those are questions which are up for debate within the scientific community. But you cannot deny natural immunity. If you do so, you are also denying vaccinated immunity. Many authorities and experts have already said that it is highly likely a scientific probability that if we as a globe are going to reach herd immunity in the end, it is very likely going to be some sort of combination of vaccinated and natural immunity that will get us there. And think about any other medication that we administer. Whether it's a blood pressure medication or a cholesterol medication, doctors don't just prescribe it and then just say goodbye. We assume it's going to work. We prove whether or not it works by rechecking the blood pressure or doing blood tests on people's cholesterol. And there should be a similar scheme in place for vaccinations and also having the infection. We totally have this technology right now. We can absolutely confirm people's immunity if we want to. I am a practitioner of lifestyle medicine. I truly believe in the power of lifestyle medicine, and I practice what I preach. I am meticulous about what I eat. I work out for an hour or more every single day. I don't ever want to be on any prescription medications, and of course I'm realistic. I know that one day I probably will need prescription medications, and of course I'm not stupid. I am very grateful I live in 2021 and not 1621 when we didn't have many of the modern medical marvels that we have now. I am honored to prescribe amazing antibiotics to people, clot busters, other medications and therapeutics that we could have only dreamed of 40 or 50 years ago. But my philosophy in medicine is a minimalist one. I only believe in a medical intervention when it is absolutely necessary, and I don't believe in throwing things at people that haven't been proven through solid hard data and evidence. I believe in the minimum possible intervention to achieve the desired result, whatever that is. And there are some experts, quote unquote experts out there, who have said, and they pointed to data that suggests that when you give people a vaccine, whether they've had COVID before or even been vaccinated before, you get these surges of antibody levels. Of course you do. That's what vaccines are designed for. But the question is that beneficial in someone who already has an adequate immune response? That's just like me saying to you, I'm going to give you 2 units of blood. I'm going to transfuse you and bring your hemoglobin up. The number will come up and therefore it's a good thing. No, we treat the patient, not the number. Giving you additional hemoglobin units of blood won't do you any good if your hemoglobin was already okay. Before COVID all started, I was a regular guy, physician, enjoyed my practice, enjoyed seeing patients, I traveled in my spare time, and like most other people, life has been turned completely upside down through no choice of our own. And for those of us who already had COVID, whether it was before we even knew COVID arrived on our shores, I was in the northeast of the United States when I contracted COVID back in 2020, but many people have had COVID since then through no fault of their own. Recovered from COVID, thankfully, as I said, the symptoms were mild. Go through a few months later, I was doing my job treating COVID patients and then find out after a few months that COVID may have even been a lab leak. I mean, what the heck is going on here? I thought, like a lot of people, that COVID was natural, zoonotic transmission from animals to humans. And of course, we don't know for sure how COVID originated, but there is increasingly more evidence. Many leading authorities in the UK and US are saying now openly that the way the virus behaves is very unusual and they think it may well have been man-made, i.e. a lab leak. We may never find out, it may never be proven, but think about that for a moment. And now we've had a vaccine come out which was fast-tracked. I mean, we all want the vaccine to work. I am rooting for it, but that doesn't mean that you don't ask any questions at all. That is the wrong way to go about medicine and science. In the end, vaccines or any medical therapeutic, I want to come back to this point because it's so important, benefit versus risk decision, and you have to allow room for nuances. The evidence out there for a vaccine being beneficial in someone who already has a good level of immunity on lab tests is highly questionable. And that is as of September 2021. In science and medicine, we can only go on the best data we have currently. But so far, the authorities, and I'm thinking here primarily of the United States, have used very weak quality data to back up their positions for not recognizing natural immunity when there are far better studies out there. So I'm now in a position then where I may well not be able to work in places where I previously liked working. I may have to even move state within America. That's something I don't particularly want to do, but I may have to do it. I'm very happy where I am right now. I can't dine in restaurants in one of my favorite cities, and who knows what comes next with travel restrictions or anything else. I find this an utterly preposterous situation when I have natural immunity on lab tests, and I will regularly check my lab tests. If they ever come back negative, then of course I follow the science, I follow medicine, I would take a vaccine. But right now that is not the case. A totally preposterous and unjustified position. Now, I know that this is a David versus Goliath situation as I take this case further. I know I'm up against entrenched interests and many agendas which may not have the health and well-being of people entirely first and foremost in their minds. That is simply the truth of where we are right now. But I am confident in my case, and I am a US citizen and I deserve a fair hearing. And one thing that I will insist on is that any expert witnesses out there, physicians or scientists, will not be compromised in any way. They will not sit on the boards of any pharmaceutical company or have any other conflicts of interest. They must be fully independent and looking at data honestly and transparently. I do believe again that it is a tremendous shame that it comes to this. I was hoping that common sense may prevail. But there has been an escalation in my own personal situation with work and doing other things that makes this very necessary. I may not have faith in various individuals and organizations, but I do have faith in the rule of law and the US Constitution. And I am therefore willing to take this all the way, if necessary, to the US Supreme Court to have a fair hearing. Authorities should recognize natural immunity because not doing so is illogical, unfair, and also unscientific.